Last time around we were riding the new Harley Davidson Sportster S, and the biggest takeaway I had was that it was nothing like the old Sportster range. So the next logical step was to ride the bike that at least looks like it is the latest iteration of the Sportster, now called the Nightster. Now that's not my words, that's Harley Davidson's. They refer to it as modern day performance with a classic Sportster silhouette. And as we get into this, I sort of agree, but there's much more to it than that. And so it was, we spent 2 weeks with the Nightster Special. Now, first of all, on that modern day performance tagline, I think we need to clarify that it's not really about performance and it's more about technology. Like the Sportster S, you have switchable rider modes, rain, road, sport, plus some customizable settings, and that all affects power delivery, ABS and traction control. In terms of power, unlike the older 883 and 1200 engine options, the Nightster Special uses the Max 975T or 975cc engine, which does deliver a decent amount of torque. It's not going to fling you off the back like the Sportster S, but when you realise that this bike is A2 licence friendly, then it's pretty impressive. Except it's not A2 friendly. Don't be fooled by the marketing, it's technically listed as A2 compatible. You'll need a restrictor if you plan on riding this without a full licence. Unrestricted, you'll get nearly 90 horsepower out of it, but despite that, it doesn't feel like a particularly fast bike. The most striking thing about it is just how easy and relaxing it is to ride. In fact, that engine is surprisingly smooth, which is good, but some will write it off immediately because it removes a lot of the Harley Davidson feel to it. Or the vibe, I think kids these days say. Now, while we've not had the best of summers in the UK this year, in actual fact, we were riding this in the brief glorious window of a September heatwave, and in that environment, we have to say this felt fantastic as a cruiser. If you're the type of rider that's not so interested in speed, you just want to hit the road and ride, then this will easily fit the bill. And despite the less rumbly vibes, it'll fulfill your easy rider fantasies, at least for the 2 or 3 gloriously hot summer days that we get each year. But inevitably, as good as it is to ride, there's that pressing question. It's not so much about whether this is a good bike, because the answer to that is yes. It's more about, is this a good Harley Davidson? And in that instance, I'm not so sure. For example, I explained in the Sportster S video that that bike completely redefines what a Harley is. There's no sense of the raw classic simplicity of a Harley. The Sportster S is unmistakably a modern bike, but with the added heritage of Harley Davidson. But the Nightster? Well, that kind of feels like a knockoff Harley Davidson. There are some nice modern touches, like the tank being under the seats rather than in front of you, although that has its own issues, like the cheap plastic cover over the tank that's not a tank, and the fact that the battery is slung out at the front under the radiator. In fact, like many press bikes, the battery is often flat when we take delivery, as it's been sat for a while. But with every bolt on the Nightster being a star bit, and many of them to remove, it's a real pain to try and get to it. So I had to spend half an hour sticking bits of metal or spanners on the end of jumper cables to try and get it running. It worked, but I wouldn't recommend it. It was annoying and, quite frankly, dangerous. But the point of all that is that if you have battery issues when you're out on the road, you'll have a hell of a job getting it going again. The more pertinent points are things like the weird engine covers that hide the actual engine. They remind me of when car companies cover their engines with plastic facades to make smaller engines look more impressive than they actually are. In this case, they're not plastic, they're metal, but they're undeniably fake and purely for show. You only need to look at the other side of the bike, because there's only one set. You wouldn't know this from just looking at some of the press photos, as they mostly show you the right-hand side, but all you need to do is use the 360 tool on the Harley website to reveal the secret. Between the lack of throb from the engine, the added electronics, the weird plasticky fakeness of the styling, it just doesn't feel right. I mean, maybe that's too harsh. Don't get me wrong, this is still a good bike. I still enjoyed riding it, and I would happily recommend it. It is a quality product, it's just such a shame that some of the styling decisions make it feel as if it's not. So, what's the bottom line? If you want a good cruiser, by all means the Nightster will do the job. If it's the Harley Davidson fantasy you want, maybe not. This is a bike in Harley cosplay, like a Toyota MR2 that's had a Ferrari body kit put on it. The MR2 is a good car, but it's not a Ferrari. The Nightster is a good bike, and while it is officially a Harley, it doesn't feel like one. If you're not concerned with the badge, you just want a comfortable ride on a rare summer's day, look no further. But for me, it's left me nostalgic for the 48 I rode right back when we started this channel. But either way, until next time, I'll see you later.